VitalHoops is for the culture.
Peace, 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 Jumbo. Welcome to the Vital Hoops Podcast. My name is Fernando Cardenas, aka International XB. I am your host. This is episode number 51. Our guest today is Isaac Jasper of the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast. I had the privilege and honor of being on the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast not too long ago. And you know, this brother is really doing some great work. And yeah, it's an honor to have him on the show. Isaac is from California and he's currently living in Las Vegas. He has aspirations of obtaining his master's in journalism, and he is currently a freelance journalist and a video editor. He's a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And like I said, he's the host of one of my favorite shows out right now, the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast. Isaac Jasper. Peace, comrade. Welcome to the Vital Hoops Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's an honor to be on here, bro. I know we in the past tried to get this going. I'm just glad we got it going now. So
for sure, man.
How you doing?
Same here, man. I'm really glad, man, and I appreciate you and I appreciate you coming on the show, but also everything you do. You know what I'm saying, with the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast and everything, man. So it's good to have you here.
Yeah. I mean, we need more of this. We need more podcasts, sharing their insights together, tackling topics so that it makes it a lot easier for the people who easier to digest, I guess you could say. So
for sure, man. So listen, man, let's get it started. I would love for you to, talk a little bit about your experience, as an independent journalist, sports journalist, all of that. What you've been through a little bit, this far, and just some of the crazy shit that has happened to you, the experiences you've lived a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'd love for you to share that with the audience a little bit.
Yeah. I think in order for me to answer that those compound questions, is for me to start off at the beginning. Why did I want to be a sports journalist?
Sure.
I've always been an admirer of sports, whether it be, football, basketball, baseball, just as a kid, seeing my brother play football, seeing him, being the one that taught me how to play basketball. Then that transitioned into, really seeing people like on the screen, that essentially look like me skin tone wise.
Mm-hmm.
People like Grant Hill, someone who was a beast on the court, but at the same time, could murder somebody, in a studio, going over stats and statistics, and covering people like Kobe Bryant. So for me, sports journalism started, just as a kid, wanting to talk sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then that transitioned into me, really wanting to get into it, fully, and so throughout high school, I really didn't know I wanted to do this. I wanted to be a journalist or anything like that. I wasn't even in journalism in high school, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It for me came kind of like around when the pandemic happened. It was like I was able, like everybody else, they were inside, not really, having too much, to do, but, stream and, do whatever you could, to pass the time by, and also to make sure that you're keeping yourself healthy. And so I came up with this idea, I can go to school online. I can potentially go after, this degree. I have some prerequisites that'll get me, a little bit further ahead, and whatnot. So in 2019, 2020, I enrolled in Full Sail University, which is a sports broadcasting university. Just saying this off tops right now, do not recommend it to anybody at all after the experiences that I went through.
Right.
While I was there, I was able to learn a lot. I was able to do a lot. But I went through a lot of negative. I went through, a lot of negative shit that I feel no one should be subjected to, especially a person of color, a person who, like myself, is Afro-Indigenous. So I really seriously don't, fuck with stuff like that. While I was there, I kind of really learned how they groom groom us being, people from the African diaspora, from, the indigenous diaspora. They groom us into basically selling out and conforming to, white ideological standings on sports, politics, and they try and filter it by making you feel like because you want to take a stance on something, you're wrong for it. And they play this like manipulative game. I have emails, got um grades, like even graded because, I take a stance on something, but there's really nothing wrong with what I'm saying,
Mm.
and there's really nothing wrong with the criteria. I did everything that they asked, but they just don't like it because of their political views, which is
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah, no
Um,
doubt.
and so I learned a lot of good things there, like how to run a podcast, how to create a rundown, how to if I was on ESPN right now,
Mhm.
how many time frames and breaks and stuff do I have? Which camera do I look at? Like there's a camera that's right here, but I'm
Mhm.
looking at you right here. It's
Right,
like framework and stuff like that. How to manage, how to also factor in journalism into that. Doing your own research.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people think that people like Stephen A. Smith and all of these announcers that we see, that they do the research, they do all the information. They don't. They have people behind them, some of which have 20 plus staff members, just one person. And they gain all the information for these individuals to make them look the way that they do.
right, right,
So I started to realize that this school was really grooming me to be, in essence, a slave,
mm.
in my opinion,
Right,
a
right,
slave to media. I'm gonna, you work your ass off until we're good and ready to give you what you rightfully deserve because you've gone to school for it. So seeing how, they treated people, via the grading process, how they just treated people in general, I decided, what, I'm gonna roll this out till, I can get my degree because I was in an accelerated program. And I wanted to transfer. So when I got to the point where I was getting ready to graduate, I transferred to a school called Ohlone College, which is a school named after my indigenous roots to Northern California.
okay,
And so transferred there, still currently am there. Transferred there with hopes of literally just graduating to transfer so I can start my master's degree.
right, right,
And Full Sail, fucked me over and basically decided that some of the credits that I obtained there were not transferable. So I'm basically in a process where I had a bachelor's degree, quote unquote, for sports journalism, for broadcasting, and it was basically a science degree, a
mm.
bachelor's degree. And I'm having to redo some of those prerequisites and classes all over again. It's a short amount, but it still goes to show you that when you take a stance and you kind of, put yourself in a position to, not really care how
Yeah,
not necessarily how they treat you, but you don't really let it affect you to the point where it affects your grades or anything like that. They still will come in any way, shape, or form uh, back to retaliate against you for not obeying their orders, for basically not bowing down and kissing their asses and,
right.
saying, I'm going to talk shit about people from my own community the way that Stephen A. Smith does.
Mm, mm.
Um,
So
so
they really want you to just shut up and dribble. Basically, just go along with the
go along
status
with the get
quo, with
go
everything.
along with the get
Yeah,
along,
yeah,
talk about black athletes in a manner that makes them that demonizes them, that puts them in a position to where they're only looked at as commodities, as again property.
yeah.
That's what they treat you, but they also want you at the same time to praise, white individuals, and they do that because when you hear a sports announcer talk on like the NFL, most of which are white
Mm,
announcers, some of which are brothers, but you hear the way that they talk, and
mhm.
it's very pro America. It's very pro,
Absolutely.
the flag. It's very, pro quote unquote what they call unity, but really it's conformity.
That's right.
Um, you know, that's what they teach you. They teach you to, like how you said, shut up and dribble, shut up and
Yeah,
throw, shut up and hit the tennis racket, whatever it is, whatever sports you play, whatever profession that you deal in. They want you to stay within those confines and not have any political understanding of what you should have, which is we live under a capitalist system. We live under an imperialist mode. that demonizes people, and it tells people to conform to a system or fall and perish to it, either or.
Okay.
Now where I choose, is I'd let this motherfucker burn. So,
Yeah.
and that's just how I've been, and this
Mm.
is not something that I've since 5 years old. I've known about the modes of capitalism and how how it's treated people. No, I just barely in the last, I would have to say 7-8 years have been, really doubling down on education like that to really understand how these institutions work and how they aid and abet what our brother, our brother Diallo has said is white hegemony.
Yeah,
Because there's nothing supreme about white people, other
absolutely.
than their destruction. So
Yeah, listen, I 100% understand what you're saying, and shout out to Bro Diallo, by the way. But but yeah, man, listen, would you care to maybe share one or two like specific examples of certain things that you might have, just experiences that you've lived, that show
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about?
yeah. So there was this one time, and I'll send you the Vimeo link and whatnot so you can see it for yourself.
Mm,
We had this assignment that we had to do. It was for midterms, and the assignment was for me to create find a demographic of people, a certain age group, certain criteria of monthly income or yearly income, and try and persuade an individual to buy season tickets from that age bracket that I chose.
okay.
So at that time, I was working at a reservation that was closely associated. It was Yamava Band of Mission Indians, formerly known as San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. They have a sponsorship with the Dodgers. They're very, their capitalism lies in in indigenous communities too, Northern America with 3Ks.
Mm,
um Working at this reservation, mind you, they have big extravagant mansions, houses that sit above a casino and whatnot, extravagant, and it's disgusting to kind of see, because they in essence conform to it. But there was a person that was living there that I was genuinely close to, because I was their irrigation specialist. So I worked at the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians casino and reservation as an irrigation specialist and as a tree trimmer. So I'm a man of many of many crafts, as
right.
most are. I didn't just, like I said, journalism wasn't the first thing, just something that I kind of fell into as a passion and love,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and something I just wanted to dive into. But um, I talked to this person. I said, "Hey, I was like, do you have season tickets, for like the Dodgers or anything like that?" And first he was kind of skeptical, like, "Oh, I'm not going to give you my season tickets," thinking I wanted them, but I didn't. I just wanted to gain a little bit of information from him because I was, i.e., going to school and working, so this was a part of my midterm. So I told him, I said, "I'd just like to get some information from you, just kind of, to help me out with the project of mine." And from that point, he gave me all the information, how much he was making yearly, which blew my mind to know that, this community gets almost $81,000 every 2 weeks they get. So that's $162,000 that they get, monthly, while some other people in their community suffer. So when he told
That's
me that,
crazy.
I went, I inputted everything in there, did the demographic, got the statistics and stuff like that, found, historical facts to kind of prove, how this came to be and stuff like that. Gave it to the teacher. The teacher comes back. Now there is no right or wrong answer to this, okay?
Mhm,
It's
mhm. Right, right.
you found something in it, you proven it through stats, through actual facts, a real person I have that's able to buy season tickets, that's able to make this amount of money, that's at this age bracket, found that person. So there's no right or wrong. It's just you do what you need to do to kind of persuade your argument. So I persuaded it very swiftly. The teacher comes back, professor, and she said, "This is all wrong," and then proceeds to say, "You should have said a 40-year-old white man and makes this much." And so when I heard that, I had pushback and I said, "There's a lot of racial insensitivity here. You're
Mm,
basically saying that an indigenous person cannot afford at this age to pay for season tickets. And then I'm using major league stats to justify that they can, while you're using minor league stats, which is not what the assignment asked for." So it was like putting me in a situation where now, how is it that the student now becomes the teacher? It felt
mm.
like,
Right.
and I just stated, there's a lot of racial insensitivity here, and
Yeah.
you take that for what you are. I mean, you can say I'm saying that you're racist, but really I'm just saying there's a lot of racial insensitivity, which means you're insensitive basically to, racial, talking points,
Mhm.
stereotypes,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
that indigenous people can't afford a season ticket for baseball.
Right,
Fuck
right.
out of here.
Yeah.
um so
Yeah.
that's one example. Another example I could give you is and I have the text messages still to prove it. Basically, they told me after I called that teacher out, I made basically like a formal complaint because she gave me a D.
Okay.
And I just felt, and I appealed it. I wanted to appeal. I felt like this shit ain't right.
Right.
So I had another person grade it, and they gave me, because they were, I found out they were colleagues. So it was the same grade that I got over and over and over. So I said, you know what? Okay, fine, forget it. Um, I actually have three things I can show you. There were this, just to kind of keep on to the second one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a text message with an instructor, a head instructor of Full Sail, that's very close to Dan Patrick. And if people don't know who Dan Patrick is the person who founded Full Sail's School of Sports Broadcasting.
Hmm.
Um, he goes in the text message basically to tell me that I'm wrong, that I don't know what racism is, I don't know what it looks like, and proceeds to say, and I take it, there's just certain things when you hear them, you see them differently. You can hear it, you can read it different, but it processes a little differently.
Mhm.
He basically told me like I need to act more white, basically. And I have the proof to prove all this, so I don't, I don't need to lie about none of this
That's
shit.
crazy.
Basically told me to act, more white, to basically get in line, boy.
Yeah.
um and that was
Straight
the
up.
last straw. That was basically the last straw, and for which made me transfer.
Mhm.
After I had seen where my credits were at, after I seen I was in a position to where I was getting ready to graduate, let's just get the fuck out of here, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to deal with none of this no more.
Yeah. For sure.
um the third incident happened in the middle of it. I had a old podcast called ICB Podcast, and it was with someone who was going to Full Sail with me at the time. Now that podcast has dissolved. It actually was turned into the podcast for which that I was the correspondent for the Atlanta Dream. So it was turned into the Living the Dream podcast, which
Yeah.
I, on this podcast now, with us, this recording that we're doing, I can say that I now have full ownership of that back, and
Okay.
we'll be doing more sports based shows on that on that podcast, hopefully in the next
Nice.
couple of months. Getting back into the swing of things on that end. But I had a podcast called the ICB Podcast, and we covered anything from hockey to basketball, wrestling. We had
Yeah.
about two other individuals that were correspondents that were, did their own little thing and whatnot. Um, we did an episode on I can't even say it was a lecture, dog, because I didn't learn shit. It was like, it reminded me of, have you ever heard when Jimmy Butler talks about how they used to go over film when he was in Philadelphia when Brett Brown was the coach? They didn't learn any. He felt like they didn't learn anything,
Okay.
and that was one of the misconnections that they had, and why the team ended up not making it as far as they did, because he just felt like there wasn't any. He didn't know who the coach was. Basically, I think it was one of the things that he said.
Wow.
So we're in this lecture, and this lecture has three stages. So it's three different individuals that are going to be speaking on three different parts.
Mhm.
So three different professors. As we're going along, I'm thinking they're going to be teaching us some shit. They're going to be telling us what we're going to be learning, and it's like, no, they're scolding us, saying, one dude said, we took shit in college and in universities from our professors, so now it's time for you to take shit from us. When I heard that,
Yeah.
I was like, yep, nope, why would you
Ah.
even say that? Like, how does that even encourage an individual to want to learn, or to
Yeah. Exactly.
it does nothing for me. So again, I learned nothing from that. And I compared it because I like to add comic relief to even some of the most, terrifying shit in the world,
Right.
circumstances. I said, being in that lecture, in that Zoom meeting, because it was all online based, so it was all through Zoom. um it was like I was in an AA meeting for the wrong addiction. You know,
Wow.
like I'm hearing, I'm an alcoholic and I'm hearing people talk about, heroin addiction.
Right.
This is not this is the wrong setting for me. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it made me feel again like I didn't belong. Like y'all, they didn't care. Y'all don't give a shit about me. And that was just kind of like one of the many, kind of straws that broke the camel's back, for
right.
me, and it put me in the position that I am today. And I'm kind of glad that I left, because going through these situations, they teach you, you grow, you,
Work.
you tend to understand and you're able to navigate if some shit like this happens again.
Yeah.
And so not that I thank them for being shitty or diabolically, racist and fascist, but
Yeah, yeah.
it has taught me, how to watch out for people like that. So like if I could give you examples, those would be some examples, and I will be shooting you over some of some of the audio. There's audio, like whole ass audio, her basically saying I should
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
a white man over an indigenous person, and then completely disregarding, and then grandstanding at the top on top of that
Yeah.
minor league statistics that mean nothing to a major league project.
Mm.
So again, it
Listen,
was the student, becomes the teacher, and that should never, I mean, it should happen in some instances when it's positive, but like this, bro, like no,
yeah, for sure.
it was wrong. It was wrong. So,
Listen,
but yeah, if
man.
you want that info, I can give it to you.
Yeah, 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 man. Listen, I appreciate you sharing that, man, because it makes me realize how much, they really protect the empire, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And really it makes perfect sense, you know what I'm saying, that journalism and specifically sports journalism, that it is used, as a propaganda tool, that it
Yep.
is used, to push capitalism the way they do it. Since, so many people use sports as an outlet to, what I'm saying, to chill out, to think about other things, to relax. They use sports, right? They're like, nah, I want to watch sports. So sports journalism is perfect for the system to use all these journalists and be like, nah, listen, this is what we have to push. This is the
Yep.
agenda, and protect capitalism, you know what I'm saying? And speaking of that, I want to get a little bit into, how capitalism is pushed through all these big time events, sporting events,
Yep.
such as the Super Bowl, the NBA All-Star Weekend, just because I know some people are still confused with what capitalism really is. There's still people out here who believe that, capitalism, it can be good, open market, you just have to work hard, all this bullshit. Could you please give us like a short definition of capitalism, or define it in your ways?
Yeah. I mean, in my own words, that's a whole episode, dog. That's
I know, I know.
um the if I had to use somebody else's words and then, compound on that, I would use one of the fathers of Pan-Africanism, Kwame Nkrumah, when he states, capitalism is nothing more than the gentleman's method of slavery. To compound, on that is that capitalism is nothing more than one of the major tools like racism is that upholds white hegemony. So
Mhm.
until we address white hegemony and understand that capitalism and racism go hand in hand,
Mm.
and that one can't function without the other, um, then we're back to square one to not really understanding, who our real oppressors are. Capitalism aids and abets what people like to call settler colonialism, but as our bro Diallo, states, these aren't settlers; these were invaders. So
Absolutely.
it is the byproduct of justifying settler colonialism,
Yeah.
manifest destiny, upholds what we now see going on with our comrades in Palestine, where they're being bombarded by ethnic cleansing bombs, and Zionism,
Hmm.
which is again the bastard child of settler colonialism. So, all capitalism is one of the major focal points that upholds the continuation of our oppression. And until we completely address it, dismantle it, burn that bitch, then we're still in a position of not really understanding and not really doing anything to understand.
Mm.
So if I to just to compound on what the great Nkrumah stated, that would be my definition.
Yeah.
Like how you said, these systems aid and abet, these extravagant ass events that we have called like the Super Bowl halftime show, the Super Bowl,
Absolutely.
the NBA All-Star event,
Mhm.
and they've even profound on it. They've created new events like the play-in tournament for the NBA.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now NHL is doing their own All-Star.
Yeah. I hear the NBA is gonna do like a 2-day draft now. They want to make it like another
Yep.
whole event. You know what I'm saying? And people are applauding this though. You know what I'm saying? People are, yeah, it's good. They're innovating. So it goes to show, man. I heard you say at the beginning of the show how we need podcasts. You know what I'm saying? Like the ones,
Mhm.
you and I. And today, literally everyone is dropping a podcast, right? Like retired players, you know.
Right.
But the problem is they're all saying the same shit. They're all pushing the exact narrative that you spoke about. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They're all right in line with the thing, pushing
You also
capitalism.
you also notice too a lot of these former NBA players, as much as they preach black excellence and upholding black individuals and finding, giving people jobs and stuff, a lot of these individuals hire OFAs. If people
Mm-hmm.
don't know who OFAs are, I don't know if your podcast is aware of that
Yeah.
term, but that's a white man. That's a white
Mm-hmm.
boy,
Mm-hmm.
hiring them, for to do something that someone can easily do, from their own community.
Right.
And I'm not against, any type of integrating podcast or anything like that. That'd be fucking wild.
Hmm.
I have people on my podcast that are from different, demographics of people,
No
different
doubt.
cultures and stuff like that.
No
It's
doubt.
just they in this instance, when you see like Pat Bev
Mm-hmm.
have Rome, a guy like Rome, and then Rome goes and says some shit about Israel and Palestine, and Pat Bev doesn't really double down on or try and tell, like, nah, you don't really understand, or he puts himself in a position because there's a black man in the room, he thinks he could be like every other white boy, and I can't say, the N word, but I could get as close enough to it by speaking in AAVE, African American Vernacular English,
Mm.
which is putting me in a position to where I feel comfortable, you know.
For
And I
sure.
think that's whack. I think that at the same time they uphold again the agendas of white hegemony. They
Mm-hmm.
uphold the values of capitalism and what I say is consumerism, and it's sick to watch. It's sick to watch. And I'm
Yes.
an admirer of Pat Bev's on the court value, but
Yeah.
his off the court, I can't really mess with the man like that is not willing to put himself in a position to really understand what's going on. I commend him on that Josh Giddey shit. But
Yeah.
other than that, a lot of these individuals, that's all they want is money. They're only on a
And
podcast so that then they can place their narrative in front of the people who are against them, which is the same people who they side with, which is the media. So
yeah, exactly, exactly.
it's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, man. But listen, a lot of people they don't realize it because so many people are still completely lost. You know what I'm saying? Within this,
Yeah.
they still don't grasp all these concepts that right now we're talking about. So, when a lot of these guys on their podcast, they say like, they'll cover like sports, what they call culture and music. They'll be like, yeah, this is sports, culture, and music, right? So then they'll start talking, and then they'll be like, yeah, it's about more than the game, or they'll be like, it's about more than the music. And then they'll be like, it's the business. It's the business. The business is so, and so they think they're doing these people a favor. They think they're doing the listeners a favor by breaking down the business and saying how we need to put the business first and how that's the way it is. So that's the game. They'll be talking about, people basically taking advantage of other people, right? Oppressing other people. And they'll be like, well, that's the game. We need to learn the game. You know what I'm saying? But it's what a lot of people talk about when they say, we've never been free. You know what I'm saying? Us, at least, you know what I'm saying? It's been so many years that we don't know what it's like. So a lot of people can't even imagine, we can't even think it, right? So we just think that this is it. This is what we got. This is freedom. A lot of people are thinking it's freedom just because they can consume. They think they're free. Like, oh, this is freedom. I can go, I can buy this, I can buy that. You know what I'm saying? So we're so far away, man, that there's a lot of work to be done. And a lot of these podcasts are basically working against what we need to do and against the way we need to go, man.
Yeah, and like how you said, a lot of these podcasts, a lot of them are just in it for the clickbait. They're in it to get the views. They're in it, to persuade, people to the wrong agenda. Like I watched, like, there's I think 450 podcasts with Jeff Teague, Gil's Arenas,
Yeah, yeah,
now he's on Club Shay Shay.
yeah,
Like all these podcasts, bringing people on, talking their shit, some of which most are intoxicated,
yeah, absolutely.
you
And they
know,
have liquor sponsors.
yep.
Like,
It's wild because all it's doing is painting this narrative, like when I think one of the saddest days in history was when I seen Shannon Sharp bring on a bottle in a black bag too, a black plastic
yeah,
bag,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
black
yeah,
and milds, and a bottle of Hennessy, and tried to justify that as like aesthetics for the black community.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
thought that shit was whack because
I
we're
feel
more
you.
than just Hennessy. We're more than just black and milds. If he really was who he says he is, and really is for the community, then he'd go out there and say that, you know what, Jack Daniels owes some people a lot of fucking money. They owe a lot of people a
Absolutely.
lot of money
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the people who found the individual who founded the recipe for Jack Daniels was a black man.
yeah,
It wasn't a no white dude.
yeah.
No
And
Ofe. And it's sad. It's sad to know that, like, you get people like Gil's Arena that basically bastardized and demonized a woman, and I'm talking about Miko Grimes. uh she, former professional baller
yeah,
abroad, um decided to, because she took a stance on Karl Malone, by calling him you,
yeah.
because he's a child molester, and that's a fact. The
Mm.
man and the child ended up making it to the NFL, and so he can no longer say that that's a lie. He's living in his own, I wouldn't even say in his own misery, because for a man to be put on the top 75 list of NBA ballers, and it did something like this, I find it's wild. It's wild, but again, that's
Yeah.
the NBA.
Hmm.
But to know that they did that to Miko Grimes and then double down on it by trying to get some guy, by getting another star on there, WNBA star, thinking that that was going to solve everything, it was whack. And it just goes to show you, like, and what's crazy too, gambling. I gotta say too, all of these podcasts have gambling things like
All of them.
sports
All of them.
bets,
Yeah.
Underdog, Prize
Yeah.
Picks,
Yeah.
FanDuel.
And they all say, and when they're promoting them, they all say it's a quick, easy way to make some money. Easy way to
Yeah,
make some
quick.
bread, man. I made some bread off of this. You know what I'm saying?
And it's not, man. I don't advise that for anybody
Uh,
at all. And again, it's just, again, having our people buy into shit that they shouldn't be buying into, and then
of
saying
course.
that it's
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it's for the people, it's for the culture and stuff like
That's
that.
it.
And it's not. That's
Most of the
not what our
shit,
culture is.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. Most of the shit that they call our culture is basically shit that's detrimental to our people. You know what I'm saying? That's what they call it. They call, oh, this is the culture, the black and miles, whether it's the black and miles, the liquor, the fried chicken, you know what I'm saying, the gambling, all this crazy shit that's detrimental to our people. A lot of times they say, no, this is it. This is part of our culture. This is not our culture, man. This is all subculture shit. And it's detrimental, man.
no, if, like how you said, like how we have all like these extravagant events, like the Super Bowl. If we could, I'd
Hmm.
like to talk about,
No doubt.
how
Please,
how the Super Bowl came to be what it is, today. In
please.
1992, there was an In Living Color halftime show that they had. For people who don't know who In the Living Color is, it was arguably one of the greatest shows of the 90s for people of color. Um, you kind of seen a mixture of people, comedians, people like Jamie Foxx, Jim Carrey, um, I think Tommy Davidson, a plethora of other people. It's where Jennifer Lopez got her start as a backup dancer. But they did a halftime show, and it was a halftime show to on Fox. It was like competing. They were the competing market, but they had a countdown clock so that they could have people go over to watch the Super Bowl. Now the Super Bowl had their own halftime show, which was called, I think, Winterfest, and I believe Gloria Estevez, I believe, was the one of the main singers that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And you seen basically In Living Color beat them in the ratings, and then that prompted the next year for people like Michael Jackson to be, you know, basically paying to be a part of the Super Bowl, because a lot of people think that these artists are paid. They're not paid to play the Super Bowl
Right.
at all. So just as much as you think Jay-Z is getting, you know, all these artists paid and whatnot now, fuck no. They're paying just as much as people are paying for ads for the Super Bowl. They've now capitalized off that for what, since 1992 to 2022, that's what, you know, almost 30 years. You know, so you add 2 more years to it, you know, that's 32 years they've been profiting off of an idea and off of ratings, you know, a boost in ratings that was given to them by people of color. You know, and this whole, you know, halftime show, you know, is a part of, you know, traditions and communities and stuff. That's a white aesthetic. We only watch football because white people have told us to watch football, because, you know, or because a brother has said something, you know, or we have our favorite baller, you know, is, you know, dribbles or shoots good, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's all a part of a white system. So until we start to understand that even the NBA and the NFL are a part of white hegemony, which means they need to be dismantled, which means every person who's from the African diaspora who plays basketball needs to stop playing for the NBA, create their own league. And we got into that, I believe, behind the scenes. We talked about even the African League in Africa is owned by the NBA. So it's
absolutely
like,
the ball,
you know,
the Basketball Africa League, yeah, owned by the NBA, same thing.
You know, so until we can, you know, really consciously come to an agreement and say we're not playing, you know, and this goes back to, you know, like what Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf,
yep,
you know, has stated, is that there really isn't a political stance. It's more of a conform stance to playing basketball and continuing the ways of you know, this affecting people's lives, the way that his life was affected, the way that Craig Hodges' life, you know, was affected. You know, it's like when we look at these halftime shows, we got to put ourselves in a perspective to really understand that all we're doing is feeding the narrative, which is that these are justified. During when Usher was doing all this and shit, they were bopping, you know, dropping bombs on Rafa, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so we're not conscious enough, you know. These halftime shows are made to blind us from what really is going on, the real narrative that white hegemony has festered all throughout the world. And we're getting to a point now where everybody's starting to realize it, and they're doing any and everything they can right now to get us to not recognize that. Oh, you see us dropping bombs in Gaza? Oh, we're going to tell you about, you know, Biden doing another act, you know, assigning some shit, you know, or whatnot. Oh, you want to know what's going on in, you know, you're finding out what's going on in Gaza and Ukraine and the Congo and Sudan and Haiti. Oh, okay. We're going to give you the Epstein list, you know, so it deters you away from what really is going on. I don't care about that list of people, because some of those people right now are living, breathing, got money, you know, putting themselves in a position to get more, buying into this capitalist mode.
Right.
And so they don't care. I care about the liberation of people.
Okay.
And I think that right now, again, manufactured consent runs fucking wild through everything. They make people believe that we need to watch halftime shows, that we need to watch the Super Bowl. We need to follow every playoff game. You know, pay your $74.99, whether it be YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, Peacock, you know, pay for these subscriptions, not knowing that they're monopolies now. Peacock is a monopoly. HBO Max is a monopoly. They're owned by, then you look at who owns them, you know, and who actually profits off of that. You know, they're owned by somebody else, and then they're owned by somebody else, and then they're owned by somebody else.
And at the end of the day, it's 3 people owning everything.
And it's 3 major companies that own everything. I just found out right now that products like Hidden Valley Ranch are made by Clorox companies.
Yeah.
You know, so while they're making bleach, they're also making ranch dressing. They're also making balsamic vinaigrettes, you know, and it's some sick shit.
The ingredients are probably similar anyway, man.
And I gotta give you some I gotta give you and Diallo, you know, a lot of credit because this vegan lifestyle has really showed me a lot, you know.
Yeah.
It's put me right on, I felt on the right track to really understanding what my body, you know, needs to consume. And I wasn't gonna learn that by watching the halftime show, dog.
Right, right. I'm sure, man. Even though they're saying, you know, they're starting to say just the same, you know, they're starting to be like, you know, this veganism is being pushed on us. Just the same.
You know what? On Gil's Arena, I think he talked about that, like the vegan, you know, veganism and whatnot. And again, these people, and I'm gonna just say it, you know, it might be an ableist term or ableist word, but these people are stupid.
Yeah.
You got all that money in the world and you don't have I mean, you don't know what thrift books is. And again, it's the people that they surround themselves around. They're surrounded by people who want to uphold white hegemony, consumerism, capitalism, racism, you know, and, you know, blindly upholding racism by meaning that some of these people don't really even understand how racist or even prejudiced, I should say, they are towards their own communities.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's wild when you get a person like Monique that goes on, you know, Club Shay Shay's podcast and talks about Black women while also being a Black woman and demonizing Black women because they go into Walmart wearing a bonnet and pajamas and says, oh, that's a Halloween costume. No, you want to know what's a Halloween costume to me? A Halloween costume to me is exactly what you're exhibiting right now, which is, again, you're playing whiteface without wearing the makeup. You don't need to wear the makeup no more. You don't need to paint your face white. You know, all you need to do is just act, say, and do. You know, so that's who I think, you know, is wearing the costume, because you're masquerading around like you're Black excellence and you're not. You're the bottom of the barrel to me. Black excellence to me is people, you know, as we're in the month of Black History Month, is people like Paul Robeson, people like the W.E.B. Du Bois, Kwame, you know, Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, you know, Kwame Ture, you know, the Black Panther Party, the, you know, a certain few, gotta be exact.
Right. And well, what happened, you know, is for a certain time frame, and then, you know, after certain years, some people started, you know, going their own way. But let's remember the Black Panther Party as the real Black Panther Party.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the ones
You
that
know,
got into U.S. politics and shit.
and I still don't understand that.
But that's how it is, man. There's a lot of movement dropouts, man. There's a lot of people who act as if, you know, as if the war was over, as if we didn't still have the political prisoners locked up, as if they weren't still killing us, as if, you know, this homicide wasn't on. You know, people still act like that, like it's all over, like, oh yeah, back in the day, you know. But that's just the reality, man. But it's amazing to get back a little bit to the Super Bowl and all that. It's amazing how quickly people forget, man. Because I remember not too long ago with the whole Kaepernick thing.
Yeah.
A lot of I was hearing a lot of brothers like, yeah, we boycotting the NFL. Let's do it. Fuck it. We boycotting the NFL. We're not watching. We, you know, they're wrong for this, they're wrong for that. And man, the year after that, pretty much it was all over, man. It was all over. You know what I'm saying? And all these years, Kaepernick still doesn't have a job. You know what I'm saying? In the NFL.
Hey,
right?
And you know, I'd like to also speak to that because I feel like a lot of people aren't really understanding what's going on. That man settled with the NFL.
He did.
The NFL is that man's not gonna get a job in the NFL.
We haven't heard him. We haven't heard much about it from him anymore, right? He hasn't been speaking up,
you
right?
Know, he got his little piece of change, you know, and as much as he, you know, makes these efforts to try and persuade the NFL to bring him, I guarantee you, something within that settlement that was that probably isn't going to be disclosed for a very long time,
right,
is that they're not going to give him a job in the NFL. Whether, like, I mean, they won't give him a job holding the towels. He won't get a job. He won't get a job like that.
But honestly, I think he shouldn't want to, man. He should, you know.
Exactly.
To be honest,
why would you want to go? That's like getting whipped by your master 30 times and then going back to your master and saying, "Can you whip me again?"
Yeah, but I do understand the love and desire to play the sport that you've been working on. But I think, you know, go play in it for another league. Like go play maybe for the second best league in the world. I don't know. Go play in Canada or something. I don't know. I don't know where the second best football league is. It's probably the Canadian league. I'm not sure, but you know what I'm saying.
I know
If
they
you
got the
really want to keep
UFL.
right,
They got the UFL now.
if you really want to keep playing football, go to another league, man. Even though it's a
Mhm,
lower level league, man. Like you're still gonna find the love of the game. But
mhm. Again, they're as much as I like, people would like to say that Colin Kaepernick is an activist and he stood on his grounds and whatnot. He's still conformed to white hegemony. He
yeah,
still aids consumption. I mean, he signed a Nike deal,
exactly,
for
yeah.
his jerseys and stuff
I
like
think
that.
I
So
think
again,
initially I think initially what he
performative.
did was interesting. I think initially what he did was interesting, but then I think because I think he was inspired by some true shit and what he wanted to do was correct, and then he started. I think he wanted to learn more. He got with I know he got with a few real organizers and activists, but then with time, like you said, he ended up signing the Nike deal, which Nike is like
Mhm.
he ended up doing a bunch of shit that just didn't really follow the way I wish he would have went. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but that's just again another example for us to understand is that this COINTELPRO still exists till this day, bro.
Absolutely.
They'll put someone in front of us that looks like us, sounds like us, acts like us, but behind closed doors, they're writing notes, getting, assignments from other people, agendas from other people,
Mhm.
and they're propagating that, which is what we see, on these podcasts, what we see at halftime shows, you know, um, like the commercials during the Super Bowl. I was scrolling through TikTok and I seen one of these commercials where it was talks about Jesus and whatnot. And
Religious propaganda going in.
it again religious propaganda that's used to try and unify people, okay, but then they I see the stop Jewish hate,
Dang.
um on there, like stop
They went
Jewish
in
hate,
like that. Oh man, I didn't watch.
but
I didn't see anything, but man,
yeah, they had commercials on like stop Jewish hate, and then had like a couple minutes later a post about like people in like Iraq or something like that, like in one
wow.
of these Middle Eastern countries. And I'm like, I know they're not doing this. Like they're trying any and every way to try and get people to think that things are okay. We
Right.
have an active war that is going on, and like a whole ass fucking genocide is not happening just in Palestine, but it's been happening in the Congo. People love to talk about the 6 million Jews that were, exterminated in World War II, at the hands of the Nazis. Well, then let's talk about King Leopold and how he killed over 10 million Africans and how that's not labeled a tragedy.
Yep. Yep.
you
Yep.
know
Absolutely. Absolutely,
so
man. When the African lives are lost, man, it's like nothing.
it
It's like
means
nothing.
nothing, which
Everything keeps going. But remember, it's like remember when I think it was during COVID, at some point, some journalist like let it all out. I don't know if you remember that, but one journalist started saying, these kids are dying, and I'm talking about blonde hair, blue eyes kids. You know what I'm saying? He made it. I don't know if you remember that. I don't remember what channel that was. He
yeah,
was
I
like
know what you're
making it
talking,
real
when the
clear.
war when
Like
the
listen,
war
this is white people dying. It's serious. Like it's not these
it's
black
serious
people
now.
dying. You know what I'm saying? He was like, this
Yeah,
is
no,
real.
yeah, he also doubled down and said, these are not these are civilized people.
Right. Exactly.
But then not really understanding, and he was talking about the Ukraine and
Exactly.
whatnot.
Ukraine and Russia, excuse me. Yeah, yeah.
And what's funny is that the next segment was them talking to a Congolese man
Uh-huh.
about why he or asking him why he's leaving and not standing picking up arms in Ukraine. And homeboy was like, I am not Ukrainian. He said, he said,
That's
I am
wild.
Congolese.
That's wild. That is
So
wild, man.
no, and again, they use media. Again, you
Yeah,
see how,
yeah,
like, you
yeah,
just,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
a perfect example for you to exhibit.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
use media to get people to think that it's okay
Of
for
course.
us to ignore genocide, for
Mhm.
us to ignore the tragedies even that happen here on the within this occupation.
Absolutely.
Like Cop City. They don't want us to know about Cop City, so what are they going to do? All-Star game is in Indianapolis, you know.
Yeah.
LeBron might get traded to the Warriors, you know. So you see how like they deter people with all these big headlines and
Big
shit like
headlines.
that,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
that way we're not really focusing on what's really happening right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
which is
sure.
that they're trying to build whole ass military bases for fucking police officers,
Yeah.
and this is their example and their solution to ending police brutality is to give them more toys. You
Absolutely.
know, all you're doing is giving them a playground. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
want a playground for them. We wanted playgrounds for children for which they did not occupy. We wanted neighborhoods for which they do not occupy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't want, in my opinion, I wanted the dismantling of police officers. I've seen how in certain counties police officers are not allotted to go to any civil disputes anymore,
Mm.
because you know, any mental health calls, because all they do is make shit fucking worse. They're not
Of
here
course.
for us, and they never were intended to
Nah, they
be.
never were,
They were
man.
intended to uphold
Any
the policies. So you know, it's again, manufactured consent runs wild, especially in our communities, and the only way that we can get ourselves to understand what really is going on is to stop aiding things like the Super Bowl,
mm-hmm.
things like the finals, the All-Star games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're even using their own fucking people right now. This white hegemonic system, you know, Taylor Swift.
Right.
Um, you know, which I, you know, and I'll just go out there and say this right now. Someone said that Taylor Swift was Michael Jackson level famous. I gotta call cap on that.
I heard there was an argument about, they were arguing Taylor Swift versus Beyonce. And I think Shannon Sharp was saying that, Taylor Swift was more big time than Beyonce. And, the black community went crazy trying to defend Beyonce like it really matters. Like, nah, Beyonce is with us. Beyonce is for us. You know how it is,
No,
but
Beyonce aids the same system that
right,
she talks about in
right.
her songs, which makes a lot of the music the music that we listen to today is trash. It
Absolutely. Yeah.
is trash. There's only a certain amount of artists today that I listen to that are relevant.
Yeah.
JID, you know, J. Cole, relatively everybody from, I would have to say, from Dreamville,
Mm.
I listen to, but you know, you won't catch me, you know, like, I'm sorry, like the music that they play today is trash. All it does is aids more consumption.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It just
it tells people to the
consume.
status quo isn't the status quo, you know, and then they capitalize off of co-opting, you know, feelings even,
Yeah.
you know, like the Beyonce's album, you know, talking about, you know, trans rights and stuff like that. If she really cared, she would, you know, she would give up and distribute the wealth that she has, but she doesn't. She's giving
Yes.
$80,000 to her daughter to buy earrings from an auction, you know, shit like that, you know, and
Absolutely.
then saying that's black excellence. That's not black excellence to me.
Nah.
Black excellence is not me, you know, going to, you know, my white zaddy executives, you know, and shit like that, and saying, you know, I can do this amount of albums if you give me this amount of money. You know,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. That's you sold your
That
soul,
that's
you
the
know?
thing. We got the whole black excellence thing fucked up. Like they don't view
Yep.
black excellence as the people who are fighting for our liberation and for our well-being. They view black excellence as, the people who are making money, the people who are thriving within the system of oppression. You know what I'm saying? If you're a black person thriving within the system of oppression, oh, that's black excellence. No, motherfucker, that's not it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like we have like people like Killer Mike right now because he won 3 Grammys. Homeboy has went off his rockers even more than he was off his rockers.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sad. It's sad to see because you get people like that that were labeled activists, were labeled, you know, pro-black, you know, at one point
Yeah.
Pan-Africanist,
All that.
you know, and now look at you. You won 3 Grammys. They took you out the damn arena in handcuffs, and you
This is
came back and been on every, you know, local syndicate and sitcom talking about black excellence and what people need to do, you know, telling people they need to go to Greenwood because it's a black owned bank, not really understanding that the CEOs and the investment companies that gave them that were white people. The seafood restaurant he's getting ready to open up with Ti is owned by was owned and endorsed by a white by white capital. It's sad. It's
it's
sad to say because people see him, millions of people, especially who didn't know him before he won or even after, he
Right.
won those Grammys are now gonna look at him and be like, oh, that's black excellence right
Exactly.
there. And it's not.
And
People like Asada Shakur is black excellence. People like
absolutely.
Yasiin Bey
Yeah.
are is black excellence to me. You
Yeah.
know,
I
those are
agree.
people right now who are actively speaking
Mm-hmm.
and have in the past about the atrocities of white hegemony, you
Yeah.
know, which I love that, you know, Yasiin went out there and called Drake pop because he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
There
Yeah.
ain't nothing,
Much
there ain't
respect.
nothing hip hop about
Much
that.
respect. I'm glad he said it, man. I'm glad he said it, you know, and I hope he's not gonna push back because he did say something interesting, which I've been thinking about the whole time. I've been thinking it. Obviously, I don't have the voice that Yasiin Bey has, but you know, he said basically it's about more than talent. You know, talent is not
Yeah,
enough. You're a talented rapper. That's great. That doesn't make you hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop was born within the struggle. It's for the people. It's a culture that's for the people. So
yeah,
if you're going with the status quo, then you're not hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Period. That's it. You have to be about more than just being nice rhyming. You know what I'm saying? Being nice rhyming is a part of the MC. It's great to work on your craft, to be good at rhyming, to be witty, to have bars, but it's not enough. That's not the only thing. That's not it, man. You gotta go further than that, you know.
yeah.
So,
And
you know,
you made a valid point, you know, and I'll give you like some kind of personal shit, like my love and admiration for hip hop.
mm,
There's like certain songs, dog, that like I hear certain instrumentals,
mm,
and it takes me back. Like I go through like my child, and I have instances like that where like I'll listen to music and it'll just put me in a position to start thinking.
right,
One of my favorite songs to listen to is 93 Till Infinity. You know,
great
one
joint.
of my favorite songs to listen to is the art of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these songs are not just from my childhood, but they also, it's kind of similar like to what, you know, like Ice-T said when he was in that interview where he was wearing, you know, shoes with duct tape, and the, you know, announcer tried to, you know, clown him, and you know, he said, it keeps me rooted. Hip hop keeps me rooted. Music
Right.
keeps me rooted. You know, and so when I heard, you know, Yassine say, you know, that Drake is pop, he is.
No
He
doubt.
is because he's been put in a position to where, you know, it's trendy, you know, and stuff like that. You know, like he said, you be walking through Target and you can hear some Drake,
Yeah.
and you know, it's pop. And that's not a knock. That's just, you're not in a position to where you're not exhibiting positive attributes and examples for the community. You're telling people
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to have this big ass fucking compound, this mansion with more rooms than you need.
Not only it's
You know,
okay, he's pushing for that. He's like, that's the shit. That's
exactly.
what you got. It's not
You
that
know,
it's okay. It's that's the way to
aiding and
go.
abetting, you know, the you know, substance abuse, whether that be, you know, cocaine, you know, stuff like that. And a lot of people don't understand he's involved in a lot of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, aiding and abetting them drinking lean and stuff like that.
Or that shit
The
that's detrimental to our community.
yeah, the dehumanization of women, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and how they should be treated, and then using women that dehumanize themselves, utilizing them to try and say, oh well, look, I'm collaborating with, like what he just did with Sexy Red, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sexy Red is a pro-Trump supporter, so by process of elimination, Drake is a Trump supporter too, because anybody who just blindly follows somebody and they
Yeah.
said shit like that doesn't care. They're for the money. Trump's for the money too. So they align perfectly,
All these
you know.
guys, man.
So, you know, Drake ain't hip hop, Drake is pop, and I'll probably even push that further. He's more like if elevator music had made it had made its way, he's definitely elevator
If that
music
was
at
a
this point.
genre, if that was a genre, elevator music, he's in there. No, but listen, what you're saying, man, what you're saying is right on because it's like, you know, whenever Drake is like one of the biggest artists, maybe the
Yeah,
biggest rap artist right now, right? So like it's like whatever shit he says, people are gonna go along with it and they're gonna shut the fuck up. They're not gonna go against it. The same thing, like
yeah,
you said, Sexy Red is blowing up, so he's gonna protect her. Even though she said some dumb shit about Trump, nobody's gonna speak up and be like, yo, she's wrong for that. Like the same shit when Eminem was number one, and I forget who pulled up those tapes. It was maybe Benzino, those tapes of Eminem saying some racist shit about black
yep,
women. What hip hopper came out like, yo, listen, Eminem, that's fucked up. Eminem, we're boycotting you. Eminem, no, nobody. Everybody shut the fuck up. Some people actually came out in defense. Like, nah, Eminem is not racist. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they do, man. It's the same thing. We're back to the same thing as sports, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Protecting, the empire, following the status quo. You know what I'm saying?
Protecting these old phase, like how you said, the fact that, I want to know, where's all these people from our community that was fucking with Michael Rappaport now? Where you at now? Where you
Man,
at now? Because like, it's people like that we put in our community,
they're not
that we
saying shit
give
now.
we give the pass to,
Yeah,
as far as you're cool, quote unquote, you're invited to the cookout type shit.
man.
You
I,
know,
I was we.
and
Listen. Now that you, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, man. But now that you're talking about Rappaport, man, I was watching like a couple weeks ago. I was watching Higher Learning again. You remember that movie
mhm,
Higher Learning?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, yo, Rappaport wasn't even acting, man. He was
No,
playing
that
himself.
was his true
He was playing
true
himself, man.
ideological self, and it was probably the easiest payday that he's ever gotten because he didn't
Right,
need to fake the funk. He
right.
was
He
able
was
to tell people what he really wanted to say. And again, I watched shout out to FD Signifier. He creates some of the most probably the most compelling video essays I've ever seen on YouTube, and does it in a way that keeps you like so engaged. It's
right.
crazy. So so shout out to him, because I think he did a an episode on higher learning, and it was
I gotta check that out, man. I haven't
yeah,
seen.
he breaks it down, and he brings in a lot of historical analysis and whatnot. And I think that's why I like it, is because he doesn't just review the video. It doesn't
Right,
just give
right,
you
right.
his personal thoughts. Like, he brings in a lot of insight that helps you gain a further understanding as to why these things were made, where they're, what their sole intentions are and stuff like
That's
that.
dope.
So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
shout out to him. Um,
No doubt.
like, just living in this system, and knowing that there's people like Michael Rappaport, like even people who are white that are married into our communities,
Yeah.
now feel like they have some type of justification to talk shit or demonize or demoralize. Like Gary Owen, for example, is a comedian, was married into, married a black woman, a
Hmm.
beautiful black woman, and now feels like he could, do racist, stereotypes of how black women act and stuff like that, but he's
Hmm.
doing it in nice, like, oh, my wife's black, so I get to do this. And it's like, we got to put ourselves in a position to not allow that shit to happen
Absolutely.
anymore,
Right.
because what we're doing is we're standing on, literally slapping each other in the faces back and forth
Yeah.
by saying, we don't give a shit about our liberation, our sovereignty, our self-determination, our value, our worth, who we
Right.
are as black individuals, what we produce, and how we gain that production back, into our own hands.
Yeah.
It completely riddles it away. And like people like Gary Owen, doing what he does, Michael Rappaport, how he was been a part of the black community, and then has been in, I don't know how many, black starred films and stuff like that, but yet is a Zionist,
100%.
and then we wonder why we have people like Kyrie acting the way that they that they act,
Yeah.
well, we got people within the NBA that side with Zionism, that are silent,
Yeah.
that are complicit with the genocide, so it's wild. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
For
There's a
sure.
lot of people that need to be put, in their place, and then there's a lot of people that, in my opinion, they just need their ass whooped. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
No, some people we've lost for good. They've gone too
Yeah.
far. They're done with, man. But listen,
Yeah, Cat Williams
it's
done for. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it's not, but it's not about, what I'm saying, like, to certain people we may sound like somewhat arrogant or whatever, but it's not about knowing everything. It's just about being
Yeah,
willing to learn. Like, I know there's a lot of shit I need to learn still, but
exactly.
I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to go that way, and I'm willing to,
We're always
you know what I'm
learning.
saying?
We're
Yeah, yeah.
always
Absolutely.
consuming. Right now, I'm learning certain things, and I'm not even comprehending that I'm, I am now that I'm
Hmm.
comprehending that I'm learning some things.
Right,
Uh,
right.
we live in a society where people, like how you said, you might take me to be arrogant. You might take me to feel like I'm a fucking know-it-all.
Mm,
I don't give a shit.
no
All
doubt.
I know is what I've been taught, and I'm learning at the same times,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
means
yeah.
that I don't put myself in a position to think that I am better than anybody. Ain't nobody
Absolutely.
better
That's
than
what it's
anybody
about.
in this fucking system. We're all oppressed. We're all subjugated to even having to work, whether it's a 9 to 5,
Yeah,
whether it's a 9 to 9, whether it's you work 2 fucking hours. We're still subjugating to having to work under this capitalist mode, surviving
No
under this
doubt. Yeah,
system in a
yeah,
way that, certain people don't really understand. We all conform to this system to survive.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
until we can
yeah.
understand how to not conform to the system and come
Mhm.
up with viable solutions and tactics that completely in all fronts disrupt that system,
Mhm.
we're back to like how we've been saying in this podcast.
That's
We're
it.
back to square one.
That's
We're
it.
back to square one.
But we gotta keep working. We gotta keep getting better, keep learning, and we gotta keep understanding that like Diallo said, revolution is an intellectual endeavor.
Yep.
Meaning that it all starts with ideology. With it all starts within you and how you move. Everything you do has to be revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? Within everything that you do, it should be working towards the just aspiration of our people, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's
And
how you move with your family, how you move with your
yep.
community, you know what I'm saying? So it's an ongoing process. It's not something that a lot of people thinking that revolution is all about picking up the gun and the gorilla. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what it is. It's an ongoing process. It's on
We're
every
not even
front.
there yet.
Just like,
We're not.
no, of course not. Just like they're attacking us on every front. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're attacking us with the food, with everything. So it has to be the same way. We have to be conscious. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but
Yeah, and it goes back to, also like one thing that I always kept prevalent in my mind for a very long time. I wouldn't say every day I read this quote or whatnot, but I believe it was W.E.B. Du Bois, they said the most dangerous thing to this system is a conscious black man, and I believe that because as soon as we get a conscious black individual that really knows what they're talking about,
mhm,
what do? They throw any and
of
everything that
course,
they possibly can
of
at
course,
them, and if that doesn't work,
of course.
then they demonize them and they do
Yeah, yeah,
anything and everything that they can to put them in a position to not live a fulfilling life, to even under this system.
yeah, no doubt.
So all I ask is that people read, bro. Like, is
Yeah,
read as much as you can. If you can't read, there's audiobooks, there's podcasts that are
yeah,
out there.
yeah,
This one that you're listening to right now,
no
where
doubt.
you can get vital, essential information, for which you can go and you can Google, you could look up
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Education, is free to everybody. You should not have to pay for
mhm,
education the way that we do under this mode. Um,
absolutely.
and so again, and I just want to even say, thank you again for having me on, because this exhibits a lot of collective solidarity that we don't really see. The
Man,
fact
thank
that,
you.
you're in France right now, I'm I'm in Las Vegas, bro, and we're
Right.
doing this,
Yeah,
it's
this is
different
dope, man.
time zones and shit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're making it happen, for the people, and we're not
Mm,
putting ourselves in a position to do it for clickbait. We're doing it because people need to understand and know certain situations, like what happened to me at Full Sail,
no doubt.
like what happens in sports journalism, how it operates, understanding that, how they groom you at a
Hmm.
young age to talk shit about your own communities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's something that I think is very vital. Podcasts are vital. Education is vital. And again, no one, we're not being arrogant. I feel when we talk about this,
Sure.
but there will be people that'll probably perceive it that way. And if you perceive it
It
that
is
way,
what it
then
is.
hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, no
I keep
doubt.
it pushing just as much as you do. You go
For
your way,
sure.
I go my way. And
For
that's
sure.
that.
For sure. Yeah, if we can get one brother or sister to just listen and be like, yo, these guys are talking about
Yeah.
something and just move towards where we need to go, then
Mhm.
that's the positive. And that's all we can
Yeah.
ask for, man. But
Yeah.
listen, I do, it is Black History Month.
Yep.
You know, when we think, at least when I think Black History Month, to tell you the truth, it's something that today it has been co-opted, like
Yeah.
like almost everything else.
That's an understatement.
So they use it. So once again, like I said, once again, we're back to the same thing. They use it to try to sell us shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, oh, it's Black History Month.
Hmm.
The cookout, all this bullshit. You know. But I personally recently I've started getting more into Black August, and it has allowed me to um, gain
It's more of what Black History Month really should be.
absolutely what it
And
should be
what it
about.
isn't,
You know what I'm saying?
for one, like to get kind of like historical and kind of where Black History Month comes from. It actually started off with a week.
Absolutely.
It wasn't for Black individuals particularly. It was for other individuals to understand the oppression that Black individuals have faced under this
Mhm.
white hegemonic system. So like when we look at Black History Month now, like how you said, it's super co-opted.
Yeah.
They're telling people like to go and buy your Black Fist t-shirts, go and buy all this,
It's all
it's
about
very consumer
consumption.
based.
Yeah.
It's very consumer based, and it's not really riddled in what it originally was intended for, which was for white au faits, snow roaches, to understand the oppression of Black folks, and for Black individuals to understand that also we are more than just the oppression that we have exhibited, that our history does not start nor will it end with slavery.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, when I think of, Black History Month, I have the same understanding as you, is that Black August is a kind of a little bit more revolutionary for me.
No
It's
doubt.
more of
Yeah.
a truer version of what Black History Month is. And then you look at too, um, you know, they give us the shortest month in the year, this system, to celebrate, our accolades, our achievements, and then also to look back at, the oppression that they gave us. They
Right.
they give us only 28 days, sometimes 29 if you given the leap year.
Right.
And again, I've been using this word a lot lately, whack. It's whack. And again, it's not rooted in true revolution, and I don't think in its inception it really was to begin with.
Mm.
Like when people think of Black History Month now, they want to talk about all these people that invented certain things, which is beautiful to know that a Black man invented, the telephone, invented the light, and a lot of people say that Edison invented the light bulb. I don't believe that at all. He stole that from Nikola Tesla, the concept of that. When they say people invented, bringing up like Jack Daniels, how that was invented, a recipe was made by a Black man.
Right.
Bringing up all these things in Black history, and it's all rooted in what we see today is, okay, like thing for the golf to sit on, the little stick
Right.
was
Right.
invented by a Black man. To know white hegemony has been profiting off of golf this whole
Right.
entire
Of
time.
all this shit. Of
you
all
know
this shit. All
and
these
so it's
inventions.
like, it's like there's there should be a deeper understanding. I feel we shouldn't be, not necessarily, we should be praising these individuals for the accolades that they have, but we should be highlighting the fact that we still live under a system that uses us and then throws us away,
Mm-hmm.
when we're not
Yeah.
useful to them anymore. Hence people like Paul Robeson, during the McCarthy era, treated the way that he was an athlete, renowned singer, renowned play artist, all of these things.
Yeah.
And they demonized him and inevitably put him in a position to where he died a broke man, but was arguably one of the greatest individuals of our generation. Like Drilled Horn once said to me, it was the tallest man in the room and arguably the most brightest man in the room, because of just his accolades, his true understandings. That, and he just was tall as shit.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's been a few athletes that have, that have spoken up, that have been willing to, and they've all been basically boycotted,
Yep.
kicked out of the league. You were just telling me something interesting about Craig Hodges, right? Would you care to elaborate a little bit on Craig Hodges?
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Craig Hodges, I believe is he a 3-time champion or 2-time champion, NBA champion?
I'm not sure, but he's definitely an NBA champion.
He's definitely an NBA champion. I know he's a 3-time 3-point champion.
He was
arguably one of the greatest 3-point shooters of all time. Accurate, precise.
Yeah.
The only time this dude missed was probably because he wasn't looking at the rim. Craig Hodges decided back in 1990, he was a part of the 91 team. Back in 1992 was a part of, the visit to the White House, for which at that time Bush Sr., a well-known, renowned fascist to revolutionaries, warmonger, he gave a letter to the president, basically just outlining some things that he could potentially do that would, help, Black communities across the occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave the letter to Bush, never received a letter in response back, and then was basically blackballed by the league. No team wanted him. He entered the 1993 All-Star game as literally just an NBA. It was like they had him in an NBA jersey. He was just a free agent, and they had him there, and he ended up losing. I think that losing in the first round that year.
So
But
yeah, so he
he
so he won in 91 and 92. So he's a two-time champion. He got
championships
two.
he won in
91 and 90
91 and
and 92.
92. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so he, goes to this All-Star in 1993 and whatnot, and then proceeds to be, blackballed by the league. From a player standpoint, he gets an assistant coaching job under Phil Jackson during the 3P era for the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq era, and was an assistant coach and ends up winning 2 more championships there.
As an assistant coach. Wow.
Now you'd think, okay, he would be invited to the White House, when they like how all NBA champions, champions do. They go and they visit this Ofe, give him praise and whatnot, basically saying hello to their massa. And
Yeah.
he's not invited. He finds out by Gary Vitti that he wasn't given the criteria. That Gary Vitti had the criteria, everybody else did, but he wasn't. And so it's another example to show you that how further they have blackballed this brother. So after that,
Yeah.
he basically goes into, not, I wouldn't even say silence, but he's been put in a position to where his documentary has been fucked with.
Yeah.
The same with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf,
Mahmoud.
was a similar situation, literally around the same time frame too, which was fucking wild.
And I think now Craig Hodges is like coaching high school or something. I don't think he.
Yeah, and maybe it's a simple life for him, and that's really what what he's used to. But he has said that the NBA had cost him millions of dollars. That what he signified as generational wealth, which I have a problem with. But as the Pan-Africanist,
right. But listen, but it's crazy how also these things weren't talked about. You know what I'm saying? No. Especially like I didn't even know or remember the whole thing as far as him as an assistant coach, right? The team winning and them inviting everybody but him, and they don't mention that shit. Nobody in the press. Basically, I'm sure 1 or 2 journalists or specifically independent journalists were able to talk about it, but it's something that was very kept under the radar. You know what I'm saying? And there's another example like that too, which was when when University of Florida won the Final Four, in college basketball. They actually won 2 in a row, but I think one of those times George Bush was the president, right? George Bush was the president, and when they were invited to the White House, I remember Joakim Noah. He said, "I'm not going because George Bush is a war criminal." Basically, he said, "I don't agree with what he stands for, or whatever, so I'm not going." You know what I'm saying? So he didn't go at all, and that didn't make much noise. You know what I'm saying? Nobody talked about that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then back in the day, also social media wasn't how it is today. But that was another thing that I really liked, because I remember back then I was in college, and I respected that from Joakim Noah. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't talked about enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like people not really understanding. Because when we formulated this episode, like the rundown, you gave me kind of what we were going to talk about and whatnot. We had it in mind, to talk, for us to talk about, all these people that get praise, that are athletes, that get praised for doing certain things, like you have like Michael Jordan, you have people like, people like Magic Johnson, all of these brothers that, say that they're Black excellence, that they've done things for the league and stuff like that. But then you look at an individual like Bill Russell. You look at an individual
Absolutely.
like Craig Hodges. You look at an individual, I could even say like Michael Cooper, Byron Scott. These people were advocating for, getting substance abuse out of the communities. Like hence Byron Scott, out of the communities. His mother was, while he was a champion, his mother was a crackhead. Wow. Like people don't understand that. People don't understand that there was a player that played on the Lakers during the 80s that was on crack, the same way that Lamar Odom was on crack. Right. So it's like these are very like the way that our communities have been targeted, i.e. by, substance abuse, the war, quote unquote, the war on drugs, when really it was the drugs were implemented into our own communities. Absolutely. It's sad. It's sad to know that Craig Hodges, wasn't able to get onto an NBA team. The fact that he easily probably could have played for the Lakers
Mhm.
as a player around that time frame. It just blows my mind the fact that we have people like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf that stands in solidarity with people from the Middle East, people who are Muslim, regardless of if if I side with that faith or not. I have to respect an individual that's willing to take a stand and saying, I
Yeah.
do not fuck with genocide. I do not fuck with Zionism.
Yeah.
You could
Same
call
here.
me anti-Semitic all you want, but I know that you're being anti-Semitic towards me because Zionism is not a culture. Zionism is a cult.
Mhm.
So when people ask me, like who are some top head figures for you in basketball that politically change the narrative, I don't bring up Kareem. I
Right.
don't. Kareem is not someone who Kareem is a liberal. Kareem is a conformist. He's a
Mhm.
conspirator against his own people. He said shit about the community that he in part then wants them to applaud him for the accolades that he has.
Mhm.
Um I've even, gone to the extent of, when it comes to Kareem, I don't put him even in that category. I'm sorry of like top ballers anymore because I feel like a lot of his accolades, the way he's acted outside of the court, I could easily take a lot of those accolades away because you haven't really done anything for your community. You've done things for the camera,
Mhm.
so that people can say, so this philanthropy,
Mhm.
or this theology that he has where he's poetic, it's very poetic and stuff like that. But no, I look at Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf as arguably one of the along with Craig Hodges, one of the greatest influencers of basketball from a political standpoint because they took a stand,
Yeah.
and they didn't
And
they didn't
and also because not to cut you off, but Mahmoud, man, to this day,
yeah.
he's still on the same mission, basically. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't changed. Like we were talking about earlier during the show. A lot of people think, they might have done something back in the day, and now they act like the war is over. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's crazy to be like a quote unquote movement dropout. With the way things are going now. You know what I'm saying? With the way things are
It's
going
crazy.
today, like
You said movement dropout. All I
yes,
thought of was high school dropout.
some people Some people are movement dropouts, man. They drop out like, what I'm saying? They think everything is smooth now. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, like you said, while the Super Bowl is going on and everybody's having a good time, they're bombing little children exactly at the same time.
Yep.
You know?
For every one child killed in Gaza, three are disabled, which means that they're amputated. The fact that even happened and people aren't talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Mainstream media isn't talking about how they literally utilized the Super Bowl to get our eyes away from what was going on in Rafah. You bombed a refugee camp for which you told people to go to.
Mm-hmm.
That's again,
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
saying this a lot this episode.
that's
Whack.
wild. Yeah, that's whack. That's whack as fuck. But listen, my bad. For your train of thought, you were saying the athletes that you respected. You had Mahmoud, you had Craig Hodges.
Craig Hodges. I could even go like to some people I could say kind of right now that I have a lot of respect for. CJ McCollum,
Mm-hmm.
um, Spencer Dinwiddie,
Okay.
minus minus that whole crypto money shit. But
What info do you have on CJ McCollum?
CJ, he's just someone who has put people like Stephen A. Smith in his place for talking
Okay.
shit about black athletes in a way
Okay.
that demonizes them, and then putting like literally him and JJ Redick fucking packed his ass up on his own show. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
they folded him like a folding fucking chair
True. I have
on
heard,
his own
a
show.
couple of things. You're right.
But I do see a lot of him kind of influencing a lot of people. Like I don't really see him talking about um like this whole black equity and we need more money and stuff like that. He's more on the lines of, well, we need kind of like universal health care. The fact that Tony Snell, I think, needed health care for his child and no team was willing to get, all he needed to do was sign a 10-day contract. He just needed 10 more days
And he
and he
didn't
could
get
have
it.
had, he didn't get it. No one signed him, so he
Oh
wasn't able
man,
to
these
get.
motherfuckers! I did hear the thing. It popped up on my feed a couple of times. Like, yo, this brother
Yeah,
needs one more contract in order to get his 10 years in. Because you need to play.
yeah,
For those who don't know, you need to play 10 years in the NBA in order to have your pension,
yeah.
basically your
And
NBA pension.
someone easily
Of
could have
course,
picked him up,
of course.
and again, that's just another way of putting black individuals in a position to where they're going to have to fight a little bit harder. The fact that this man needed that health care for his
He needed,
child,
yeah, for
for his
his
wife.
child even has a condition or something, right? I
Yeah.
think I read. Yeah.
Yeah. And he
And
doesn't have,
people,
I know he doesn't have the means to
no.
pay for whatever the procedures are that the NBA easily could have paid for.
And the
Um,
worst part about it is that, like I said, well, no, the worst part about it is that his child might not get the health care. But a bad part about it is that, like I said, some people are gonna justify it. Like, listen, you
yeah.
have to look at it from a business perspective. You
Yeah,
may not
exactly.
need
Fuck
that kind of
business.
player. How much is he gonna cost you
Yeah.
in order to run your team? Blah blah blah. All this fucking bullshit. People are like that, man, and that's a heavy problem that we have today because we've
Yeah,
gotten.
and you made a valid point, a very valid point is that we have all of these black athletes, all these people that are quote unquote business centric. They're saying this is just business, you know. This is not the WWE. This is not a storyline where you can say this is best for business, as Triple H used to say. So for
Right,
people
right,
that
right.
are out there, that might not go well with your audience. They might not know what that meant, but like, no, it's not. The fact that he needed healthcare, someone could have helped out and they didn't, just goes to show you that this league ain't shit. They use
Absolutely.
you and use you and use you for whatever they possibly can, and then exactly at the exact moment that you need them to step up, they're not willing to.
Yeah,
They're not willing to. It's sad. I'm
real
I'm
talk.
hoping maybe he can come back the next season, resign, and that'll help hopefully get him the
Hopefully.
10 year of medical that he needs, for his child, for himself, for his wife, for his family in general.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, man.
But it's again just another example to show you, man, like you can't trust the system.
Yeah,
You
nah, nah,
can't trust the system of the NBA, which upholds white hegemony. Come on now,
nah.
you know.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So that's real. That's real talk, man. Listen, I want to talk a little bit about, there's this really great, French ex-professional basketball player
Yep.
here. You know, um, since I am living in France, man, this thing really, it's been making a little bit of noise, not as much as I would like it to make, but
Hmm.
her name is Emily Gomis. So basically, this sister, man, she's an ex-professional ball player. She was born in Senegal, and she's actually, I believe both parents Senegalese and everything, but she played professional in France, and she pretty much developed her game in France. I believe she came real young to France, and she, grew up here, and but she was really great. She played with the French national team from 2002 to 2014. So for a bunch of years, she was on the French national team. She actually made the WNBA in 2006. She played for the
Hmm.
New York Liberty, and I believe the rest of her career was mostly first division in France. She won a silver medal with the French national team in 2012 Olympics, right?
Hmm.
So she was recently appointed to the Olympic Committee for this upcoming Olympics, which is here in Paris, 2024. Yeah, she was gonna serve as an ambassador, what I'm saying, for these upcoming Olympics. Um, so recently on Instagram, she made an Instagram post, right? This was October 9th, 2023.
Hmm.
And her Instagram post was basically a map of France, and you could see the Israel flag taking over the whole map, little by little, right? The Israel flag taking over the whole map, and it said, "What would you do in this situation?" So that was the post that she made, man. Right. So from there, she was forced to resign from the Olympic Committee, basically, and since then she has apologized. You know what I'm saying? She said she was against all forms of terrorism, all this shit. You know how it is. You know how people have to apologize,
Yeah, the
whatever.
liberal approach
Yeah,
to
yeah, the
trying to
liberal
suck up
approach to
bacterial
everything.
masses. Yeah.
Exactly, the whole thing. Like, yeah, Hamas is wrong. I'm against all forms of terrorism. You know what I'm saying? All that good stuff. And still, like to this day, it's serious. Like she's receiving threats left and right. Not only did she have to, resign from the whole thing, but she's actually still receiving threats. People sending her wild letters and everything. She openly speaks about it. She's still receiving threats and everything. But they said that basically she had a duty of neutrality. As a
which
as
is
an
long form, for don't say shit.
as yeah, exactly, as an ambassador of the Olympics. So listen, man, a lot of athletes don't want to speak up, right?
Mhm.
Because they feel like, most athletes don't want to speak up. Athletes generally have been taught to, stay in their lane, do what they do. The truth is also that athletes, we got to work a lot on our craft. You know what I'm saying? It's time consuming. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, like everybody else, because everybody else works at their craft, even though it's not athletics, but sometimes we may not have the information we need to speak up. But so unfortunately, a lot of athletes have not spoken up to stand with her. But some have. Some have. I'm not gonna lie. But listen, man, this story here seems, it is what it is, man. It's the French Empire, just like the United States would do, just like the British Empire would do. This is what we got going on this side, man. What do you think about it? Have you had a chance to look into it a little bit?
Yeah, I had so actually that was the last little bit of information I needed before we got on to the onto this recording.
Mm.
And I looked into it. I have my own opinions on it. I think it's bullshit. Um, I think, there's people that are literally a part of, that are ambassadors for these events. They are actively calling for the genocide of people, and the fact that she just, again, she didn't side with Zionism, but then doubled back on that and was like, you know what, I'm sorry, I do side with Zionism. I do, all, again, the liberal centrist approach to conforming to your zaddies,
Yeah,
to white aesthetics, and we as individuals need to stop doing this shit. So that would be my opinion on it, is that I think it was fucked up, but
yeah,
at the same time I also think it was fucked up for her not to stand a little bit more on
yeah.
her moral
I
grounds
wish it would
and
have
be
too.
like, you know
Yeah,
what, I don't care, you can fire me, but
yeah,
there's an active genocide going on right now, not just in Palestine, but also in Sudan, the Congo, Haiti,
absolutely.
everywhere. The Philippines, we're all being affected by white hegemony. Until we can address it,
Yeah,
I'm not going to shut up.
yeah, yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
think that's the approach that I feel like she should have taken. But again, is it the status quo? Hell yeah,
Hmm.
it's a status quo.
Yeah,
You say something, they reprimand you for it, they want you to apologize, that you apologize for it, and then you get nothing back in return. But then they get a backhanded apology,
yeah,
for you not doing anything wrong,
yeah,
other than saying what needs to be said. Again, it's silencing people and their abilities to speak on narratives and situations that are going on that deeply affect not just our minds but affect our hearts. Like, it's hard, bro, to go online and see what's going on
it
in
is.
Gaza.
It
It's
is.
hard, it's gut wrenching.
And
There's times where I want to throw up, bro, because
yeah,
I'm like, this is fucking how,
it's
like,
not
I want to cry. I've cried in anger
it's
multiple
not a
times
joke.
about
It's
this.
not a joke, man. And
Yeah.
listen, not to cut you off, but real quick, just in her defense, I believe like you, I believe it's fucked up that she kind of went back. But in her defense, I do believe that she has been recently posting things again. You know what I'm saying? Like,
About that,
yeah, about,
because she didn't
end the
receive a response
genocide,
back,
free
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Palestine. You know what I'm saying? I believe she has been, a little bit, she has been back on it because she's seen all the horrible shit we've seen, I'm sure. And she's like, ah, this is
Hmm.
just wrong, man. So I do believe she has been, speaking on it a little bit again recently. But yeah, that's how it goes. And then, another thing that I believe is that, like you said, there's people that are completely supporting the genocide and nobody tells them that, you have to be neutral. You know what I'm saying? But
Right. Right. Where's that
right,
neutrality
right,
bullshit then,
right. But I do believe, like, if she would have been white, her apology might have been enough to stay on the committee. You know what I'm saying?
Even then, so if she was white and said that, you know, she probably wouldn't have gotten reprimanded for it. We also have to look at the fact that our color of our skin contradicts how we're
Mm.
treated, whether that's in the workforce, whether that's in your day-to-day life,
Yeah, yeah,
whether
absolutely.
that, it's, and so, I would go further to say if she was a white woman
They
that
wouldn't
said that
even
shit,
said shit to her. Right, right.
they wouldn't have said
Right,
fucking a shit. They wouldn't have batted an eye. But the fact that she's a black woman,
right.
she's talented, she brings a lot to the table that they make profit off of. They're gonna try and keep her in check all day long. They could find these white folks come a dime a dozen.
Yeah, no
Us,
doubt.
us black individuals that are excellent at athletics, that are intellectual, not a whole lot of us come around because we're too festered in things that don't matter to our own communities.
Mm.
So when they take one of us and they have us, they try in any way to keep us there and reprimand us. And then when we don't fall in line, what happens? We lose our job. We can't gain another one, or you get put in a position like Craig Hodges. He literally handed a letter to the president, and it was been blackballed from the league
Mhm.
This whole entire time, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf took a stand by literally not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance during a time frame where they were actively bombing Kuwait oil fields during the Gulf War. So
That's it.
that's what is it? What does James Brown say? Living in America.
Oh man, nah, don't say that, man. James Brown. Oh man, that's
I
that's
got you
funny,
off
man.
guard right
That's a
there,
funny
didn't
reference. Yeah, you got me with that. Damn, man.
I?
Yo, man, listen. I think that's a good one. That's a good one. Yo, man, listen. I really appreciate your time, brother. And
Thank you, bro.
yeah, it's been a good one. Before you go, man, I would love for you to recommend a book, man. We like to do this here on the Vital Hoops podcast.
Yeah.
A good book recommendation. I know it's always difficult because there's a lot to recommend. But maybe one that's maybe mostly inspiring you recently, or whatever. A good book recommendation.
Yeah, it would be Kwame Nkrumah's Consciencism. Currently a book that I'm deeply devoted into right now. Just in the last, I would have to say, couple days, I've
Mm-hmm.
read a couple chapters. It's something I think a lot of individuals, if you read,
Mm-hmm.
you get a basic understanding of a lot of the main contradictions that we have today. All it
Yeah,
does is profound it even more, gives you a lot more basis to work with when you're either argumenting these topics, you're talking about them in discourse. Just a really good book to read. I can even give a second one out there. I've been
yes,
reading
please.
Stokely Speaks, formerly known as Kwame
Okay.
Ture,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
book on Black Power to Pan-Africanism.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite chapters in there currently right now is the chapter on Palestine, because he not just only goes in depth on Palestinians, but he goes in depth on how we have this narrative that white people are oppressed, uh, uh, you know, economically and culturally and spiritually, which is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
um White people, yeah, economically are exploited by their own by their own people, but black individuals today, and even back then, are
Yes.
subjugated to two types of exploitation: cultural, and economical, because we produce arguably the majority of the income base, gross domestic product, within the confines of this occupation by working. Literally the backing of this company, as I should say, yeah, this company that is America,
Mm-hmm.
was backed off of the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors here.
Absolutely.
Um,
100%.
so yeah, those would be two books that I would deeply recommend.
I appreciate that, man. This is a great, great recommendation. Listen, man, before you go, please let the audience know, what I'm saying, your socials, where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, man, the great, the Indigenous Nightmare podcast. And also, man, how they can, help you out. You can kind of, let them know the situation and how they can help you out via PayPal. And I'm gonna have all the info down, definitely in the description.
Okay.
But please go ahead and share.
Yeah. You guys can find me on Instagram at the Indigenous Nightmare. My podcast is the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast at uh the Indigenous Nightmare Pod. And then you could also find me on YouTube. My podcast is on YouTube. I'm kind of, really digging kind of, this StreamYard direct live show shit straight to YouTube. So it's real easy for me right now. You can find me there on YouTube. I do, hopefully, starting next week, we'll be starting fully a schedule. So Thursday through Sunday, which means Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be doing live shows, for which I'll be going over various amount of topics. Each day is a different day.
Nice.
So Thursday we talk about labor unions, events, and stuff like that. What's going on? Palestine updates, Sudan, Congo, Haiti updates. Friday is a strictly wrestling show, so there's um, no politics or anything like that that will be conducted. It's just strictly talking about wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling fan. But yeah, we talk about wrestling on that day. Saturday is a solo show with just by myself, which I'm hoping I can get you on next Saturday.
Okay.
What is that? Sunday I do a show with my comrade Clint Terrell, and we go over things that are going on within the prison system, kind of like from an abolitionist standpoint.
Mhm.
Gain a little bit of history on certain things that I feel like that show is arguably like one of the most constructive shows that live shows that I've done, because we've done two already.
Nice.
And we go over a plethora of things, certain topics and stuff like that. So I, shout out to Clint. He is a co-host, a correspondent for the podcast, and does a great job, doing that. But yeah, that's the schedule. Monday through Wednesday, I'm off. I don't do a damn thing. But yeah, and just to kind of explain, like for anybody out there that can help or is willing to help, currently in just like a little financial mishap. I got injured working at Amazon, and it's just subjugated me to limitations, mobility wise, and stuff like that. Throughout this podcast, you probably see me go back and forth like that because my back's hurting still. But yeah, below are ways to help via Venmo and PayPal. And this not just only helps me, it helps my dog as well. So this just helps us keep us housed and whatnot during this tough time. So if you could, I appreciate it. If you can't, something that's even better is sharing. Just sharing it around, passing it around. Any and every dollar helps. I don't have a set limit. I'm like most people. I'm fucking trying to survive under this damn system, y'all. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, just as a former wrestler of the past would say, Dusty Rhodes, hard times, hard times. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I just want to say first off, thank you for having me on. More of this, I'm hoping, is to come. We could do more collaborations, back and forth. But again, this is what's needed. This type of collective solidarity. The fact that you're in France, the fact that I'm in Las Vegas right now, and we're shooting this. We're gain. This is that internationalism that is lacking right now.
Absolutely.
The global solidarity that's lacking right now. And I think, not that this is the start of, everybody else, people will see this episode and now
Yeah.
internationalism is alive. But no, it's just a start for us as comrades, as
Yeah.
individuals who are getting to know and grow, as comrades together. So I just first and foremost thank you for having me on, bro. It's an honor
Yeah.
to even be a guest on your show, as not a lot of people have been on,
Yeah.
but the ones that do make it, they are impactful, a lot of them. So so shout out to everybody that was that came on before me. I've been trying to watch at least your episodes and then Diallo's episodes right after, just to kind of see. You guys are like I don't watch a whole lot of shit, man. I watch you,
Man, I
FD,
appreciate that, man.
Diallo,
Uh,
EYL.
yeah.
And then I fluctuate a bunch of like interviews from like the 60s and 70s with some of our favorite revolutionaries,
True. That's
like
always necessary
Kwame and,
to
and,
go
and
back. Yeah.
Rodney, gaining insight via audio and whatnot, reading books. So it's again
Yeah.
just an honor to be on here, bro. And
Yeah. No doubt.
good shit,
Yeah.
man. I mean, you hold down your show more than I feel like I do mine. So
Nah, man. Listen, your show has great quality, man, and it has really inspired me also with the Vital Hoops podcast to keep rocking, man, because you know sometimes people don't know, but we put in some work for this. You know what I'm saying? We,
yeah,
we, we put in some work, and then I see you doing it over there and doing it right, and so I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you do with that, man, and
thank you.
when you talk about the importance of that internationalism, man, that's the key. And I do want to mention, I actually have, one of my comrades with the Pan African League of Moja, who's actually gonna be, I can't give too much information yet, but he's working on something really special with Gerard Horn, man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I got some insight
yeah, yeah,
on from Gerald Horn on what's going on the
yeah,
back burner. So I
yeah,
think I might know what you're talking about. I'm gonna keep
yeah,
my
yeah,
mouth
yeah,
shut
yeah.
though.
So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be another great show to follow, man.
Yep.
Some
Yep.
more great info, man. Because Gerard Horn is really one of those uh people that we need to be listening to as much as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
As much as possible. So yeah, man. Hope to have you back on, man, as well. And
Yeah.
sit.
We gotta get a that trifecta I was telling you about. We gotta do me, you, and Diallo
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
one show. We go in on some
That would
vegan,
really, yeah, that would
some
really be great, man.
veganism shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would really be great, man. So yeah, keep it going, man, with the veganism. Whatever
You
you need, man. Any kind of tips you need, whatever help on.
I need recipes, dude.
Okay, okay. I
I ate
got you,
some
man.
chickpea. I ate some chickpea tacos a couple days ago.
How was that?
Last night I had some vegan mac and cheese I made.
Nice.
Um, I can't even say it's tough, dude. It's not.
Uh-huh.
I don't
It's,
crave
it's
meat.
really Yeah, man. Yeah,
I don't crave meat, bro. Like
people
I don't
think.
know, like, and I
Yeah,
think it was before the New Year's. I consumed as much meat probably as
yeah,
I could, because it was even getting to the point where I was like, I'm tired of eating this shit,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like this, and as soon
yeah.
as I cut the meat out, man, it really helped. It's been very
Mm.
beneficial. Um, I don't know if you see in my face, I'm losing some weight.
Nice,
Um,
nice, man.
but for the most part, it's just really helped with my energy level, dude.
Yeah,
Like I'm able to I'm on kind of like a really good sleeping schedule.
that's
Like as
dope.
I told you, I still have deep rooted tendencies from ROTC. I was a part of ROTC growing up as a kid, and
Okay.
so I always used to have to wake up at like fucking ass crack of dawn,
Mm,
you
mm, mm.
know, just to be at school and shit. So I still kind of do that. Just I
Yeah.
don't have school, and I'm up early and stuff like that. But yeah, man,
But yeah, man.
it's been a breeze. I can't complain. Like I'm getting ready to potentially, if all goes well, and I have the funds to do it. I want to make some vegan fish out of eggplant
Okay.
and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Nice, nice.
So I've been seeing stuff like that. There's this a comrade of yours I seen that created a page where they kind of do a lot of the vegan meals and stuff like that.
For
So I
sure.
ate the quinoa salad that they made.
Mm, mm.
That shit was bomb.
Yeah, that's what's up.
The whole mixture of it was fucking bomb, bro.
Yeah, man.
So,
And quinoa is a
you know,
really good. It's one of the best things you can eat, man.
yeah,
Quinoa it has a lot of good nutrients, man. But but yeah, man. I mean, definitely, the meat, all that meat and dairy and all that is very complicated for us to digest. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And a lot of people like to say, like, well, we've always eaten it and this and that, but most of our ancestors ate very little of that.
yeah.
They ate very little meat. You know what I'm saying? You know,
It was basically like a seasonal things. It wasn't,
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
people also don't understand too. We didn't have supermarkets back then. It wasn't until the meat
exactly,
industry,
exactly.
was like, we're not making enough money, so we're gonna create these supermarkets and we're just gonna take over
Yeah.
the meat industry and and inject these people, inject it with pesticides and fucking. It's disgusting. Meat.
And that's where I was going, man. If you're against oppression at all and you see what's going on in these fucking slaughterhouses,
Yep.
it's it's just nasty the way they're doing that, man.
It's
And
fucking disgusting.
those are living beings, man, with a central nervous system. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So they're feeling pain. They're feeling pain. You know what I'm saying? And it's nasty the way everything is done and how they're all jam packed with antibiotics and fucking and then we're putting all that into our bodies. So but
We
yeah,
also
man.
have to factor in too, like pigs. They're one of the most like inbred species like on the planet. And when like, to give it kind of like an example, I think it's either I don't think it's Tasmanian devils. I think it's hyenas.
Hmm.
Um, they are the one of the most inbred species on the planet, which means that they fuck their mothers, they fuck like all that shit. And they have this thing where they can, like, cancer is like a flu to them, where like if
Hmm.
they get a scratch, from one another, the cells are identical
They'll
that
pass it on.
it just passes on like
Right,
it's the
right, right,
fucking
right.
like it's the fucking flu. And that's the same for fucking pigs. Just like pigs also are an invasive animal. They were brought here by Spaniards, conquistadors, in
Mm.
the 1400s on boats. And they ravaged and pillaged, and ate up all of indigenous, people's basically way of life, what they used to eat.
Mm.
And people have been we've been subjugated to think that things like pigs and
Yeah,
chickens and horses and shit all grew in reciprocity here in Northern America, when all of this shit was exported, just like and
absolutely. Yeah,
imported just as much as people were.
for sure.
So in that, and back to, like, the consumption of meat. If you're eating swine right now, you also have to factor in that that's an inbred species, which means it fucked somebody who it was related to,
Mm.
and that can cause problems, ailments. They come with cancer. I've seen people
Yeah,
go and buy meat and it has big tumors and shit
yeah.
inside of it, and the meat industry doesn't give a fuck
They
about
don't
it.
give a
They
shit.
don't care. you know they fill them up with more fucking, pesticides and
Yeah,
shit like that. They spray them down and whatnot, inject them,
yeah, yeah.
so that it makes
They
these
don't give a
big
shit.
ass fucking chickens. And now you got to look at too the fact that the legalization of uh basically lab grown meat. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you an example right now. I find it funny that you can go down the list of people who accepted the lab grown meat and are using it right now are also the same people who are telling people to buy chicken wraps right now. You could get a chicken wrap from Burger King. You can get a chicken wrap from McDonald's. You can get a chicken wrap from Wendy's. And again, in all these companies aid and abet white hegemony are actively aiding Zionism right now. So for people who think it's not intertwined, we're on a fucking merry-go round, and it's going faster and faster each time we go around. And 100%. Until you can slow yourself down, realize what's going on, then you start to understand, oh, the world's really controlled by three major companies. All these three major companies own this, they own that. You know, goes back to what I was saying. How is it that a Clorox company, dog, can make fucking salad dressing?
That's it. That's it, man. Yo, man, I love that we ended on veganism, man. Next time, let's expand a little bit on that, man. I appreciate you, man. We'll do this again soon, man.
Yeah, no problem. And again, thank you for having me on. I'm gonna talk for a couple more minutes. I'm just playing with you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Peace. All right. Episode number 51 is in the books. Vital Hoops Podcast. Once again, thank you to the comrade Isaac Jasper. Make sure you go check out the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast. Please help the brother out if you can. Like I said, all the info is going to be down in the description. And definitely follow him on social media, see what he got going on. And again, please like, share, subscribe. You know what I mean? Just take the time to share this episode. I appreciate you for listening, for watching. VitalHoops.net, for the people, by the people, for the culture. Uhuru.